Hi, and welcome to Mid-South Viewpoint. I'm Byron Tyler. Glad that you could stop by on today's program. The last time we got together, we had a room full of pastors' wives, and they were just sharing their heart for ministry, their families, and some of the frustrations at times, what it is to be a pastor's wife. You know, sometimes we don't think about the responsibility they have. I mean, they're trying to balance the home life, sometimes a work life too, and the ministry responsibilities, and they're trying to hold it all together. And so last time we got together with Christy Poindexter, Elizabeth Nichols, and Pamela Helton, and the ladies have come back. Christy, thanks for coming back. I guess we didn't do too much damage last time.
No, it's my pleasure to be here as always, and thank you for having us back again.
I just want to tell our friends, you are a special lady. You and I have been friends for several years, and I just excited to see how God is using you. I appreciate your sensitivity to the Holy Spirit when it comes to your family, to the ministry, and for others that you care about so much.
Well, I mean, God gets every drop of the glory. I appreciate the remarks, but all glory, it just belongs to God. We've been friends for years. You've walked with me in the nonprofit ministry and all that, and I'm just thankful for how God has given us both the grace to just be a part of his ministry, a part of his will, a part of seeing his kingdom come and his will being done.
That's right. I know there's a scripture, Pamela, that says bad company corrupts. You have surrounded yourself with some good company.
Absolutely, absolutely. As a matter of fact, during my meditation on this morning, it's like the Lord was speaking to me about being retired, but still not being retired. I'm not retired from the service of the Lord, and that I need to make certain that I am always surrounded by those people that are going somewhere, that are doing some good things for Him.
Yeah, I guess as you have matured in the ministry, along with your husband, and having many years of marriage and ministry together, I guess it can be sometimes if you have the newcomers come into the ministry, say, is it hard to say, hey, this is not the best way to go, does that make sense?
New people that are coming into the ministry.
Yes.
No, I never tell them that. I don't ever tell them that this is not the route for you to take when they're coming as it relates to becoming a new pastor or a minister or a preacher, evangelist, whatever it is that the Lord has called them to do. No, if God is calling you to do it, you just need to ask for clarity. And once you get that clarity, He has given you the power to do exactly what He's called you to do.
And I really appreciate, Pamela, you sharing that, because I've heard stories where oftentimes, say, a pastor and their wife may be retired, and maybe they remain at that church because they were there for so long. A new pastor comes in, and maybe they stir up a little bit or cause a little trouble, but, I mean, that's not what God's called us to do.
No.
Yeah.
He's not a troublemaker.
Right.
He is not the author of confusion.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing the confusion, then you're being used in a wrong way, and you need to back out and pray and get redeemed.
That's a good word. Elizabeth, for you, now I think we have a really good representation here of those in the ministry. You and your husband are at Redeemed Church.
Yes.
And where's Redeemed Church again?
It's in Whitehaven. It's very close to Methodist South.
Okay. And you told me last time that you've been in the ministry together for about 9 years.
Exactly.
Okay. You told us last time, Elizabeth, that your mom started this ministry, Redeemed Church.
She did. She first started out with prayer in my grandmother's home. And it was supposed to start out with just our family. And other people wanted to come. And then after that, it started in her home because it got larger. And after that, the ministry started. The Lord told her to start a church. And the Lord told her that she would start the church, but it wasn't for her. But it would be someone in our family. And she didn't know who it was at that particular time. And during the time that she was ministering, my husband, he accepted his call as far as assistant pastor in the ministry. And that's how it started. And after she passed on, he took on her position.
So prior to that, your husband was not in the ministry, though. Is that right?
He was not in the ministry.
What was he doing?
Actually, he worked at, he just stopped working at Smith & Nephew. He was one of the directors there. for 21 years. So last year was his last year. So he took a package, and he is now full-time pastor.
Full-time pastor.
Yes.
And I don't know, Pamela, if we mentioned last time. Now, were you and your husband in full-time ministry, or was your husband also working outside the church for, employment?
My husband was bivocational for years. My husband actually was the head mediator for Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and he retired from there. And we don't know how we did it for all of these years, to do both, and then to do revivals and to go speak and teach at seminars and all of these things. But the Lord enabled us to do it for all of those years. And even the ministry grew and has many sons and daughters out of that church. They're now pastors.
Wow. Now, Christy, I think, of course I know, but your husband Terry is also a musician, a very good musician, by the way. And of course, he was worship leader for many years before you started this new church that meeting in your home right now, just getting underway in the Arlington community.
Well, yeah, I met my husband in a recording studio, and actually he's always been, worked for the church. He was minister of music at Chief Cornerstone Church for many years, and when we got married, I became the worship leader, and we ministered there for many, many years. During that time, we both the Lord moved us both into a speaking ministry. In 2000, I began to speak, focusing on women's issues, and of course, dealing with the topic of domestic and sexual violence, ministering in the church, because the Lord just let me, it's a need for that in the church. My husband has always been about just had a prophetic ministry with him. So the Lord just moved us from music to the more speaking, the more sharing of the Word of God over the years. And so here we are. It's been a blessing. It's been a blessed walk.
Last time we talked about just trying to balance out a busy life with family, sometimes, full-time employment plus full-time job. And you as a pastor's wife, and wives in general, they always want to work hard to make their husbands look good and to have, kids looking good and everything balanced and everything. Spending so much time, that you have the potential of losing your own identity. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And I think, Elizabeth, you personally have had that experience.
Right. I think a lot of pastors' wives, when you're trying to make sure that the ministry is growing and you want to make sure that your husband is always together and helping him in the ministry, and especially if he's not working full-time ministry, you tend to lose who you are. And you tend to make sure that all the members are fine, your children are fine, your husband is fine, and you tend to forget what God has called you to do. And I think you have to, there's a time to do that, because every time God may not be calling you out, but there's a time that you must hear the voice of the Lord when God is telling you to branch out from that. And you have to know that it's a time and place for everything. God has his phases in your life. And sometimes when God is telling you, okay, it's time for you to come from behind the scenes and you must go forth. And so many times, so many pastors' wives, we don't see that. We tend to just lose ourselves and forget, why am I really here? What is my purpose, God? And so many times you see that, because we want to see our spouses, be everything that's God called them to be, and also our children.
Yeah. And for you too, Pamela, have you faced one of these identity crises during the years?
No, not really. And I say that honestly, no, not really. And once again, I think it probably came from my upbringing, where my mother was the leader in the household because my father had passed away. But the other thing is that could be a two-edged sword, because when I worked in management, I was used to that. And then coming home having to take off that hat of being a manager and being in charge, because at home I'm not in charge. So I have to be very honest with you. That was a challenge at first in our marriage because of the fact that, okay, I'm in charge. You were at charge where you worked. But now that you're home, you're no longer in charge. And so when the Lord began to deal with me to make me calm down, it's okay to calm down and be a wife, a good wife, but still not lose your identity of who you are. And take good care of your husband, take good care of your children, but also take good care of yourself. And I say take good care of yourself because if you get lost in all of that, it's going to manifest itself some way or another. You're going to get sick or you're going to go into depression, and that's what we see a lot of in this day and time because the woman has lost. She really doesn't know who she is, and now she's suffering from depression or some other kind of disorder, something within her own body that she doesn't know where it came from, and it's because she's lost. She doesn't know who she is. So we have to be really, really careful about that.
Ladies, what would you consider the best advice that you ever received when you first got into the ministry, and advice that you stuck with today? You want to start with you, Pamela, on that?
What advice would I give to another pastor's wife?
I was just thinking, what was the best advice that you personally received as you first started into the ministry that you held on to and you've been able to use it even today?
Absolutely. Prayer. Stay focused. Pray, stay focused, listen, get clarity from God.
Okay. And how about for you, Christy?
I would say the same thing. The best advice I've received is that the position requires that you are on your knees talking to God. When you don't know what to do, seek the Lord. When you do know what to do, seek the Lord. So.
And do you remember who gave you that advice?
Actually, it was my mother-in-law that gave me that advice. She, of course, is pastor's wife as well. Just coming up in ministry under that congregation, I received a lot of good information from her, and that's some things you just cannot do, particularly, especially nothing we shouldn't do. The Bible tells us that we should acknowledge the Lord in all of our ways, and He will direct our path. So with that being said, there's no time that prayer is not of necessity. There's no time that we should not be quick to pray. Even Jesus said that men ought to always pray. So we cannot emphasize how important prayer is when you're particularly in life and in ministry.
And Elizabeth, for you, advice that you've been able to use to hold on to, maybe something that you learned in the very beginning of moving into this ministry?
I think the same thing as these ladies. I would say prayer also, and just to balance it. Make sure that you have that family time and have a healthy family. And so that is what I've been able to carry on, to make sure I take that family time out. And it has helped. It has helped. And I just think that's the reason why we just enjoy one another as a family, and we still enjoy the church.
Looking back when you and your husband first started in the ministry, what would you do different today? I mean, if you look back when you first started, is there anything? I know it's been 9 years for you, but is there anything? Did you have any misconceptions about ministry when you started? Discovered that's not the way it was when you actually got into it?
I just think my husband and I, we talk about this a lot, and I guess the wisdom, you just need wisdom in some things. I think we've learned a lot and of how to deal with different things when different people have problems, how to handle different things. So I just think that in learning how to deal with people, you because so many people have so many problems, and you just want to make sure that you have given them wisdom of exactly, because everybody's situation is different. And so just to how to handle each situation. And I think when we first started, we didn't know exactly how many people were going to have so many problems. So,
And I guess you see a lot of problems.
you do. A lot of situations. They're not necessarily bad. It's just that, sometimes people just need advice, and you want to make sure that you're hearing from God for them, not what you think, but what is God saying for them, because each situation may be different.
And I know, Pamela, of course, you represent someone who's been in the ministry a few years longer. And then, what about for you? Anything that you would do different?
Yes. Learn how to say, I don't know, and no. I don't know, and no. And it's okay. A lot of times we think that we're supposed to have all the answers, that we're supposed to be the experts on every matter and all of that. But we can't. We're not, because we are human beings. And remember that we're human. So I go back to that. Learn how to say, I don't know, and no.
Yeah. And of course, I know, Christy, you too have been in the ministry and for many, many years. Anything you would do different looking where you are right now?
Excuse me. I would agree with the learning how to say no. Totally. But I also want to tag along on what both of the ladies have said. When it comes to doing things differently in the ministry and all the things that, being a pastor's wife or even walking in ministry involves, there are some things that come up as you go along that you I don't think some of us could possibly have known before we got into the position. Namely, losing yourself in the ministry. You do have the desire to see the ministry grow, the people of God receive what God has given to the pastor or given to you to give to them. And there's such a desire to see people do better. And I think that's a common compassion that we all have. We want to really see people do better. We want to see lives change. We want to see situations, if they're heartbreaking situations, turned around. And sometimes you can pour all of yourself into that desire. I will not, as Paul would say, I would not have you ignorant. Sometimes you bring stuff home after praying, after talking with, after sharing, after ministering with people. You can even bring the feelings and the emotions of that stuff home when you say that's the case.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And that's a part of, how we can so quickly and easily lose ourselves in even the problems of other people, the burdens and the weights of the ministries. You can lose yourself in your husband's desire to see the ministry grow and the things, because when churches have bills sometimes, and sometimes the bills don't equal what we have in the bank account. You can lose yourself in taking on so many weights and so many issues, and it all brings us back to a point that we have to be, God just has to teach us how to totally lean on Him and depend on Him before that's the case. So, there are things that I've learned in this walk, but at the same time doing it different. I think the walk has been God's way of allowing wisdom to get to me, having to walk some things out. He gives you wisdom. He surrounds us with people like Elizabeth and like Pam, that share, and it's important to talk. I didn't mean to talk so much, but it's important to have somebody to talk to. Oh my God, women of God, have someone you can trust. When you say that?
Yes, definitely.
You can trust that's not going to take what you tell them and spread it, but who is a prayer warrior, who has a heart to just, what would you say?
Absolutely. You just talked about my entire article.
Amen.
That you have to have somebody that you can talk to, that you can share with, because if you don't, you hold all of that in, and as I mentioned before, it's going to manifest itself some way in an eruption in your home or whatever. But you don't want those kinds of things to happen to you. And I noticed that even when Mary received the word from the Lord that she was going to have a baby, if you really read that text, you'll see that she went immediately to go and talk to Elizabeth. And she didn't just spend a week with her. She spent 3 months with her. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to heard the conversation that they had. So they shared with each other.
Elizabeth, have you too found that confident in ministry, that trusted friend that you can depend on, lean on?
Definitely, definitely. And that is so important. You need that outlet. You just need an outlet. You need to balance it out. You need to have someone that say, okay, let's just go to lunch.
Yeah.
And if you need somebody, let me just scream.
Yeah.
You may not be able to tell them everything, but just let me scream to know that you need to be praying for me.
Yes.
And I just need your presence, your safety zone. Everybody needs a safety zone where you know that, okay, if I go with her, even if I don't share with her, she knows to pray for me. She won't tell my business, but she knows where I am.
Yes.
Even though you may not tell them everything, but everybody needs an outlet. And then you need an outlet, not just necessarily a person, but for yourself. Mm-hmm. For yourself, you and God, just that me time. So God can, whatever has gone on, because in the ministry, you may get hurt.
You will get hurt. Right.
And so you just need that outlet, where God can just heal your little heart.
Yes.
Wow. We talked about this last time, and we talked about when your husband gets that 2 a.m. in the morning call, a death or a sickness or something's happened, or right when your family is planning that outing together, and or a special time, and your husband gets called away because he has to go to the ministry. How do you handle that? I mean, how do you keep from being angry?
You have to. Your outlet then is God. Okay. You say, I don't understand this. You need to help me with this. And then he has to give us a change of heart. But the thing of it is, what we've learned is if there's someone else that can take care of that, then we allow them to take care of that. And through ministry growth, the Lord will give you the right people in the right places that you can assign different people to do that. Early on in the ministry, we did not have those resources, but now we have those resources. So guess what? He doesn't have to do everything.
Exactly.
For everybody. And I think when people learn that and they are comfortable releasing it to a trusted person,
Yes.
it does well. It does well for the pastor of the church and the members of the church as well, because you begin to use all of the gifts in the church.
What I was going to nail, you just nailed it right there, because I was thinking, I think it's Ephesians, excuse me. I believe it's Ephesians 4 that talks about the pastor's role is to equip the saints, not to do all the work of the saints.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
What I call the ministry mission statement.
Yes.
So you understand that, Christy?
Yes, I mean, and I totally can identify what Pamela was saying. There was a time where I would just I would just have to talk to God. Well, everybody take vacation and stuff. I felt those things, and I had to talk to God about it. But the truth is that when God adds people to a ministry, first of all, everyone has something that they can bring to a ministry to help strengthen and edify the body of believers. And one of the things my husband and I often talk about is, and our hearts go out to pastors who may have resources, but for whatever reason they feel isolated as to where they can't utilize what God's given them in their church. So they set themselves up, on this isolated hill, we call it, and it takes a toll on them mentally, physically, and marriages are strained because they feel like they have to. They can't, as Sister Helton said, they can't trust. They feel like they can't trust someone else to do it. But you don't have to do everything. That's why it's a body. That's why we are many. We being many are one body. Not a bunch of hands, not a bunch of toes. It's a body, and everyone supplies what we supply to the body so that the body can grow together.
Yes.
I was just sitting here thinking about all of what you as pastors' wives and your husbands together experience when it comes to your congregation and your fellowships. I mean, every family has, happy moments and sad moments. But you can multiply that because you're the shepherd over, an entire congregation. So you'll have multiple deaths, multiple births, multiple, celebrations for anniversaries, and I mean the good and the bad and the ugly. And I mean, it's trying to maintain it all when you're on, can potentially be on this roller coaster of emotion that happens constantly. I mean, how do you maintain the steadfastness there, Pamela?
Go back to a point that we mentioned earlier, that we need to have an outlet. And if you have an outlet, you don't contain all of those emotions. You have to let go. And you pray about it, you talk about it, you get clarity about it, and then you let it go. You cannot continue to contain everything.
Well, our time again on this program is coming to an end, but I want to ask you a question before we say goodbye. And that is, what do you enjoy most, Elizabeth, when you don't have a specific ministry responsibility right now? If it's me time, or you and your husband, if you're just kicking back, what do you like to do to have fun?
It's our family time and our family vacations. We look forward to that every year. We are spending time with one another, and we meet with other family members, and we go out of town. So it's just an outlet for us. And I'm sorry, my family are still into roller coasters, so I'm not a roller coaster girl, but, I just enjoy being there because that's what they enjoy, and just to see the hype of it. I do ride rides, but I don't like the roller coasters.
What about physical exercise? Do you do anything like
definitely
go to the gym, walk?
I do. I have to have that walk in. I have to have that exercise in. It's so important because it's an outlet, and I think everybody needs an outlet, and I try to do it where it's not a lot of people, because that's just me and God. When we're talking, He's talking to me, and it's an outlet for me.
Yeah. And how about for you, Pamela? What's your enjoyment?
My enjoyment is family during holidays. I love to cook large meals and invite people over, and on Fifth Sundays have a brunch. I love that. And then we love to travel abroad and do ministry. And we do that every other year.
Wow. And for you, Christy, what's enjoyment? I know, of course, you like to sing, don't you?
Ha ha ha! Look at you. I do. I do. I just love to worship the Lord and sing songs to Him. And it's funny. One of the things, of course, I enjoy is my family in our downtown. I just love family time. I don't care where we get it. If we're running around the house being silly with the kids, or playing with the dog, or wrestling with my husband, and he's like, okay, all of y'all are way too big for this now. Whatever it is that we're doing, it's just the family time, the laughs, the savoring these moments with the family, whether it's at home or on vacation. One of the things that I do like to do is just a personal, thing for myself. Pastor Poindexter, Chief Cornerstone Church, many years ago gave me a guitar. Just, gave me one. He had it and he wouldn't do anything with it. And I took to it. And so if no one ever hears me play it, and I've played it a few times at church when we were still attending that church, but I like just, picking at a guitar. I have 3 now. My husband bought me another one, a spiffy one, because he knows that's just my thing. I'll get back in the room and I'll just make noise, and that's just my thing, to do. And I want to just get away, and just have some me time.
Make noise.
I like that. Yeah,
Right.
Make a joyful noise. Last time, y'all were very open to give out contact information, so listeners, if they possibly a pastor's wife or those in the ministry were going through a difficult time, or just wanted to give a shout out and say, keep up the good work you're doing, how can they contact you, Christy?
You can email me at christypoindexter@gmail.com, and Poindexter is POINDEXTER@gmail.com.
And for you, Pamela?
It is P as in Paul, B as in Baker, Helton, HELTON @bellsouth.net.
Okay, Elizabeth, your turn.
Liz is redeemed. LIZISREDEEEEMED gmail.com.
All right.
And I also want to say that Pamela Helton has a wonderful article that she writes in Spirit Magazine, and it's specifically for pastors' wives. So I just want to put that out there.
I forgot.
Yeah, because she's not mentioning it, but it's helpful, and she touches on all types of subjects that are so helpful to pastors' wives. So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that because she's not mentioning it.
Well, ladies, these past two programs have been a real blessing to me personally, and even knowing how I can pray for my pastor's wife and encourage them, and thank you so much for what you're allowing Christ to do through your life for his kingdom, to impact not only your family, your churches, but also our city and our community. Thank you so much, and thank you for being on Bot Radio today.
Thank you.
Friends, that's all the time we have on this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. I do appreciate you stopping by. I'm Byron Tyler. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.